A lady with really small boobies buys a finely carved mirror at an antique shop. The shop owner gives her some old nonsense about it being a magic mirror. She brushes off the sales nonsense, buys it for its beauty, and hangs it on her bathroom door. The next morning, she playfully says, "Magic mirror on my door, make my boobies size 44. There is a flash of light, and her boobies grow to Dolly Parton proportions. She runs to tell her husband what happened. They both quickly run up to the bathroom. The husband crosses his fingers, smiles at his wife and says, "Magic mirror on the door, make my manhood touch the floor." There's a flash of light, and both of his legs fall off. There was once a great actor who had been in the acting profession for a number of years, more years in fact than he cared to remember. All day long before a play, he would practice his lines over and over again until he had it memorized absolutely perfectly. Because he never made a mistake, he became egotistical and turned all of his coworkers away. As a result, he fell out of favor with theater management and struggled to find any work in the acting profession. Finally, after years of unsuccessfully looking for work, he found a theater where they were prepared to give him a chance to shine again. The director told him, "This is the most important part, and it has only one line. You must walk onto the stage carrying a rose. You must hold the rose with just one finger and your thumb, sniff the rose deeply, and then say the line, 'Ah, the sweet aroma of my mistress.'" Well, as you might imagine, the actor was thrilled at being given this opportunity, and vowed to himself that he would remember the line at all costs, and not let the theater management down. All day long before the play, he practiced his line over and over again until he had it memorized absolutely perfect. Finally, the time came for the play to begin. The curtain went up, the actor walked onto the stage, held his fingers up, and with great passion delivered the line. "Ah, the sweet aroma of my mistress." The theater erupted. The audience was screaming with laughter, and the director was steaming. "You fool!" he cried. "You have ruined me!" The actor was bewildered. "What happened? Did I forget my line?" he asked. "No, you idiot!" the theater director screamed. "You forgot the rose!" The pastor asked if anyone in the congregation would like to express praise for answered prayers. Susie Smith stood and walked to the podium. She said, "I have a prayer. 2 months ago, my husband, Tom, had a terrible bicycle wreck and his scrotum was completely crushed. The pain was excruciating and the doctors didn't know if they could help him." You could hear a muffled gasp from the men in the congregation as they imagined the pain that poor Tom must have experienced. "Tom was unable to hold me or the children," she went on, "and every move caused him terrible pain. We prayed as the doctors performed the delicate operation, and it turned out they were able to piece together the crushed remnants of Tom's scrotum and wrap a wire around it to hold it in place." Again, the men in the congregation cringed and squirmed uncomfortably as they imagined the horrible surgery performed on Tom. "Now," she announced in a quivering voice, "thank the Lord, Tom is out of the hospital, and the doctors say that with time, his scrotum should recover completely." All the men sighed with unified relief. The pastor rose and tentatively asked if anyone else had something to say. A man stood up and walked slowly to the podium. He said, "I'm Tom Smith." The entire congregation held its breath. "I just want to tell my wife the word is sternum." A sweet young woman on a flight from Switzerland asked the priest seated beside her, "Father, may I ask a favor?" "What is it you wish of me, my daughter?" "Well, I bought an expensive electronic hair dryer that is well over the customs limits, and I'm afraid they'll confiscate it. Is there any way you could carry it through customs for me? Under your robes, perhaps? I would love to help you, dear, but I must warn you, I will not lie. With your honest face, Father, no one will question you." When they got to customs, she let the priest go ahead of her. The official asked, "Father, do you have anything to declare?" "From the top of my head down to my waist, I have nothing to declare." The official thought this answer strange and asked, "And what do you have to declare from your waist to the floor?" "I have a marvelous little instrument designed to be used on a woman, but which is, to date, unused." Roaring with laughter, the official said, "Go ahead, father. Next!" A guy walks into a bar with his dog on a leash. The barman says, "Geez, that's a weird dog. He's stumpy-legged, pink, and doesn't have a tail, but I bet my Rottweiler would beat the heck out of it." $50 is laid down. Out in the yard, the Rottweiler gets mauled to pieces. Another drinker says his pit bull will win, but the bet is $100. Another trip to the yard, and when it's all over, there are bits of pit bull terrier all over the place. The drinker pays up and says, "Say, what breed is that anyway?" The owner says, "Until I cut his tail off and painted it pink, it was the same breed as every other alligator." Another trip to the yard, and when it's all over, there are bits of pit bull terrier all over the place. 3 retired gentlemen were sitting together, having coffee and talking about their life experiences. Then one of the suggestions is they each relate their most exciting experience. The first, a retired sheriff, described the terrifying excitement of a shootout with Bonnie and Clyde back in his younger days. The other gents nodded and agreed that it indeed would have been exciting. The second, a retired fireman, related the tale of a huge fire at the university several years back. There were flames, fire trucks from several area fires, departments, and many damsels in distress to save. The other gents agreed that it had to be a very exciting time. The third, a retired undertaker, started. "One night I got a call from the local Hilton Hotel to pick up a body. I get to the room with the body, which was under a sheet. So far so good, but when I got a look at the corpse, I had a problem. It had a huge bulge, if you know what I mean. I knew there was no way I could get him through the lobby like that. So I found an old broom and whacked that bulge just as hard as I could to make it go down." He paused. The retired fireman asked, No offense, but how was that exciting?" The undertaker sighed and said, "Turns out, I was in the wrong room." 80,000 blondes meet in a football stadium for a "Blondes are not stupid" convention. The leader says, "We are all here today to prove to the world that blondes are not stupid. Can I have a volunteer?" A blonde gingerly works her way through the crowd and steps up to the stage. The leader asks her, "What is 15 plus 15? After 15 or 20 seconds she says, 18. Obviously everyone is a little disappointed. Then 80,000 blondes start cheering. "Give her another chance! Give her another chance!" The leader says, "Well, since we've gone to the trouble of getting 80,000 of you in one place, and we have the worldwide press and global broadcast media here, I guess we can give her another chance." So he asks, "What is 5 plus 5? After nearly 30 seconds she eventually says, 90? The leader is quite perplexed, looks down, and just lets out a dejected sigh. Everyone is disheartened. The blonde starts crying and the 80,000 girls begin to yell and wave their hands shouting, "Give her another chance! Give her another chance!" The leader, unsure whether or not he is doing more harm than damage, eventually says, Okay. Just one more chance. What is 2 plus 2? The girl closes her eyes and, after a whole minute, eventually says, 4? Throughout the stadium pandemonium breaks out as all 80,000 girls jump to their feet, wave their arms, stomp their feet, and scream, "Give her another chance! Give her another chance!" Boudreaux got old and his children put him in the old folks' home near Breaux Bridge, where he met a lovely lady from Texas. Now Boudreaux, being a fine upstanding Catholic, didn't want to do anything that was against his religion, no. So he proposed marriage. Both Boudreaux and Mabel were in their 80s. Mabel told everyone at the senior citizens' home the good news. Irene, Mabel's best friend, told her that since she was very wealthy and the person she was about to wed was, well, to say the least, not worth a plug nickel, she should insist on a prenuptial agreement. Mabel was sitting on the porch swing with Boudreaux and told him she would marry him providing he would sign a prenuptial agreement. Boudreaux told Mabel, "I don't know what that is, but I'll sign anything you want, because I love you so much." Mabel got out her pen and paper and started, she said, I want to keep my house down in Texas with all the oil wells. He said, that's fine with me. I'll keep my shack on the bayou. She said, I want to keep my Cadillac, BMW, and Lexus. He said, that's fine with me. I'll keep my pick-em-up truck. She said, I want to keep my yacht that is moored near my summer home in Padre Island. He said, that's fine with me. I'll keep my pirogue. She said, I want to keep all my jewelry. He said, that's fine with me. I'll keep my stuffed deer head. She said, and I want to have sex 6 times a week. He said, that's fine with me, put me down for Fridays. Once upon a time, there was a young boy with a very bad temper. To teach the boy a lesson, his father gave him a bag of nails and told him that every time he lost his temper he must hammer a nail into their wooden fence. On the first day of this lesson, the little boy had driven 26 nails into the fence. That's how angry he was. Over the next few weeks, the boy began to control his temper. And so he hammered fewer and fewer nails into the fence. It wasn't long before the boy learned it was easier to hold his temper than to drive those nails into that fence. The day finally came when the boy didn't lose his temper even once. He was so proud of himself. He couldn't wait to tell his father. Pleased, his father suggested that the boy now pull out 1 nail for each day that he could hold his temper. Several weeks went by and soon the boy was able to tell his father that all the nails were gone. Then the father took his son by the hand and led him to the fence. You have done very well, my son, he smiled. But look at all the holes in the fence. The fence will never be the same. The little boy listened carefully as his father continued to speak. When you say things in anger, they leave permanent scars just like these. And no matter how many times you say you're sorry, the wounds will still be there. The Internal Revenue Service sends their auditor, a nasty little jerk, to audit a synagogue. The auditor is doing all the checks and then turns to the rabbi and says, I noticed that you buy a lot of candles. Yes, answered the rabbi. Well, Rabbi, what do you do with the candle drippings? He asked. A good question, noted the rabbi. We actually save them up. When we have enough, we send them back to the candle maker. And every now and then, they send us a free box of candles. Oh, replied the auditor, somewhat disappointed that his question actually had a practical answer. So he thought he'd try another question, in his obnoxious way. Rabbi, what about all these matzo purchases? What do you do with the crumbs from the matzo? Ah, yes, replied the rabbi calmly. We actually collect up the crumbs. We send them in a box back to the manufacturer, and every now and then, they send a box of matzo balls. Oh, replied the auditor, thinking hard about how to fluster the rabbi. Well, Rabbi, he went on, what do you do with all the foreskins from the circumcisions? Yes, here too we do not waste, answered the rabbi. What we do is save up all the foreskins. And when we have enough, we actually send them to the Internal Revenue Service. Internal Revenue Service? Questioned the auditor in disbelief. Ah, yes, replied the rabbi. Internal Revenue Service, and about once a year, they send us a little prick like you. I have everything that I wanted as a teenager, only 60 years later. I don't have to go to school or work. I get an allowance every month. I have my own pad. I don't have a curfew. I have a driver's license and my own car. The people I hang around with are not scared of getting pregnant, and I don't have acne. Life is great. I changed my car horn to gunshot sounds. People get out of the way much faster now. Gone are the days when girls used to cook like their mothers. Now they drink like their fathers. I didn't make it to the gym today. That makes 5 years in a row. I decided to stop calling the bathroom John and renamed it the gym. I feel so much better saying I went to the gym this morning. Old age is coming at a really bad time. When I was a child, I thought nap time was a punishment. Now it feels like a small vacation. The biggest lie I tell myself is, I don't have to write that down, I'll remember it. I don't have gray hair. I have wisdom highlights. I'm very wise. If God wanted me to touch my toes, He would have put them on my knees. Last year I joined a support group for procrastinators. We haven't met yet. Why do I have to press 1 for English when you're just going to transfer me to someone I can't understand anyway? Of course, I talk to myself. Sometimes I need expert advice. At my age, getting lucky means walking into a room and remembering what I came in there for. A stoner is walking along the beach when he stumbles upon an old, dusty lamp. Curiosity gets the best of so he picks it up, gives it a rub, and poof, a genie appears. "Mortal, you have summoned me, and you may have 3 wishes," the genie says, eyeing him seriously. "What is your first wish?" The stoner, already in a mellow mood, grins. "All right, for my first wish, let's smoke a joint together." The genie, though a bit surprised, shrugs. With a snap of his fingers, a joint appears, and they light up, passing it back and forth in silence, enjoying the ocean breeze. After a few minutes, the genie says, "What's your second wish?" The stoner, eyes half closed, nods and says, "For my second wish, let's smoke another one." The genie obliges, conjuring up another joint, and they repeat the process, sinking deeper into relaxation. Once that joint's burned down, the genie clears his throat. "So, what's your third wish?" The stoner thinks for a second, a slow smile spreading across his face. "Okay, for my third wish, let's smoke one more." The genie raises an eyebrow but obliges him. So they spark up one last joint, and after they finish, the genie disappears into the lamp. A minute later, he pops out with chicken nuggets in his hand and asks, "So, what's your fourth wish?" A woman has an affair and cheats on her husband after years of a happy marriage. Realizing her mistake, she begins to pray to God. "Lord, I know what I did was wrong, but my marriage is the only thing that gives my life purpose and joy. Please don't let my husband find out." Suddenly, she hears a voice from above. "Okay, my child, it will be, but on one condition: years from now, you will die by drowning." The woman hesitates at first but then responds, "All right, Lord, if it means he'll never find out, then so be it." The next years of her life are happy and wonderful. She starts a successful business and lives in comfort with her husband. However, she continues to cheat on him many times, having forgotten her conversation with God. One day, she decides to book herself a vacation on a cruise ship. A few days into the voyage, a loud boom rocks the cruise ship, and it starts to sink. Suddenly remembering her agreement with God, she is struck with grief and begins frantically praying to God again. "God, you're not gonna drown an entire cruise ship full of people because of me, right?" She hears a familiar voice. "Are you kidding me? I've been working to gather all you cheaters here for years." A drunk Scotsman fell asleep at the side of the road when 2 young women walked past. One of them spots him, so she says to her friend, "I wonder if it's true what they say about Scots not wearing anything underneath their kilts." The other one is curious too, so after making sure the Scotsman won't wake up, they raise his kilt and take a look. And lo and behold, he is completely naked. After their curiosity fades, one says to the other, "We should leave him a present so that way when he wakes up, he'll be happy." So she takes a blue ribbon from her hair and ties it around his private parts into a bow. A few hours later, when the Scotsman wakes up, he feels the need for a piss. So he goes behind a tree, pulls up his kilt, looks down and says, "Well, I dinna ken where you've been, mate, but you've won first prize." While conducting some business at the courthouse, I overheard a lady, who had been arrested for assaulting a mammogram technician, say, "Your Honor, I'm guilty, but there were extenuating circumstances." The female judge said sarcastically, "I'd certainly like to hear those extenuating circumstances." I did too, so I listened as the lady told her story. "Your Honor, I had a mammogram appointment, which I actually kept. I was met by this pricky little clipboard carrier smiling from ear to ear, and she tilted her head to one side and crooned, 'Hi, I'm Belinda. All I need you to do is step into this room right here, strip to the waist, then slip on this gown. Everything clear?' I'm thinking, Belinda, try decaf. This isn't rocket science. Belinda then skipped away to prepare the Chamber of Horrors. With the right side finished, Belinda flipped me, literally, to the left and said, Can you stand on your tippy toes and lean in a tad so we can get everything? Fine, I answered. I was freezing, bruised, and out of air, so why not use the remaining circulation in my legs and neck to finish me off? My body was in a holding pattern that defied gravity, with my other breast wedged between those two 4-inch pieces of square glass, when I heard and felt a zap. Complete darkness. The power was off. Belinda said, Oh, maintenance is working. I bet they hit a snag. Then she headed for the door. Excuse me. You're not leaving me in this vice grip alone, are you? I shouted. Belinda kept going and said, Oh, you fussy puppy. The door's wide open so you'll have the emergency hall lights. I'll be right back. Before I could shout no, she disappeared. And that's exactly how Bubba and Earl, maintenance men extraordinaire, found me, standing on my tiptoes, half naked with part of me dangling from the jaws of life and the other part smashed between glass. After exchanging a polite, Hi, how's it going? type greeting, Bubba, or possibly Earl, asked, to my utter disbelief, if I knew the power was off. Trying to disguise my hysteria, I replied with as much calmness as possible. Yes I did, but thanks anyway. Okay, you take care now. Bubba replied and waved goodbye as though I'd been standing in the line at the grocery store. 2 hours later, Belinda breezes and wearing a sheepish grin. Making no attempt to suppress her amusement, she said, Oh, I am so sorry. The power came back on and I totally forgot about you. And silly me, I went to lunch. Are we upset? And that, Your Honor, is exactly how her head ended up between clamps. The judge could hardly contain her laughter as she said, Case dismissed. After 37 years of marriage, Jake dumped his wife for his young secretary. His new girlfriend demanded that they live in Jake and Edith's multi-million-dollar home, and since the man's lawyers were a little better, he prevailed. He gave Edith, his now ex-wife, just 3 days to move out. She spent the first day packing her belongings into boxes, crates, and suitcases. On the second day she had to have movers come and collect her things. On the third day she sat down for the last time at their beautiful dining room table by candlelight, put on some soft background music and feasted on a pound of shrimp, a jar of caviar and a bottle of Chardonnay. When she had finished, she went into each and every room and stuffed half-eaten shrimp shells dipped in caviar into the hollow of all of the curtain rods. She then cleaned up the kitchen and left. When the husband returned with his new girlfriend, all was bliss for the first few days. Then slowly the house began to smell. They tried everything, cleaning, mopping, and airing the place out. Vents were checked for dead rodents and carpets were cleaned. Air fresheners were hung everywhere. Exterminators were brought in to set off gas canisters, during which they had to move out for a few days, and in the end they even replaced the expensive wool carpeting. Nothing worked. People stopped coming over to visit. Repairmen refused to work in the house. The maid quit. Finally, they could not take the stench any longer and decided to move. A month later, even though they had cut their price in half, they could not find a buyer for their stinky house. Word got out and eventually even the local realtors refused to return their calls. Finally, they had to borrow a huge sum of money from the bank to purchase a new place. The ex-wife called the man and asked how things were going. He told her the saga of the rotting house. She listened politely and said that she missed her old home terribly, and would be willing to reduce her divorce settlement in exchange for getting the house back. Knowing his ex-wife had no idea how bad the smell was, he agreed on a price that was about 1/10 of what the house had been worth, but only if she were to sign the papers that very day. She agreed, and within the hour his lawyers delivered the paperwork. A week later the man and his girlfriend stood smiling as they watched the moving company pack everything to take to their new home, including the curtain rods. One day, when a seamstress was sewing while sitting close to a river, her thimble fell into the river. When she cried out, the Lord appeared and asked, My dear child, why are you crying? The seamstress replied that her thimble had fallen into the water, and that she needed it to help her husband in making a living for their family. The Lord dipped his hand into the water and pulled up a golden thimble set with sapphires. Is this your thimble? The Lord asked. The seamstress replied, No. The Lord again dipped into the river. He held out a golden thimble studded with rubies. Is this your thimble? The Lord asked. Again, the seamstress replied, No. The Lord reached down again and came up with a leather thimble. Is this your thimble? The Lord asked. The seamstress replied, Yes. The Lord was pleased with the woman's honesty and gave her all 3 thimbles to keep, and the seamstress went home happy. Some years later, the seamstress was walking with her husband along the riverbank, and her husband fell into the river and disappeared under the water. When she cried out, the Lord again appeared and asked her, Why are you crying? O Lord, my husband has fallen into the river. The Lord went down into the water and came up with George Clooney. Is this your husband? The Lord asked. Yes, cried the seamstress. The Lord was furious. You lied! That is an untruth. The seamstress replied. Oh, forgive me, my lord. It is a misunderstanding. You see, if I had said, No, to George Clooney, you would have come up with Brad Pitt. Then if I said, No, to him, you would have come up with my husband. Had I then said, Yes, you would have given me all 3. Lord, I'm not in the best of health and would not be able to take care of all 3 husbands, so that's why I said, Yes, to George Clooney. And so the Lord let her keep him. The moral of this story is, whenever a woman lies, it's for a good and honorable reason, and in the best interest of others. That's our story, and we're sticking to it. Signed, all us women. One day, when a seamstress was sewing while sitting close to a river, her thimble fell into the river. When she cried out, the Lord appeared and asked, My dear child, why are you crying? The seamstress replied that her thimble had fallen into the water, and that she needed it to help her husband in making a living for their family. The Lord dipped his hand into the water and pulled up a golden thimble set with sapphires. Is this your thimble? The Lord asked. The seamstress replied, No. The Lord again dipped into the river. He held out a golden thimble studded with rubies. Is this your thimble? The Lord asked. Again, the seamstress replied, No. The Lord reached down again and came up with a leather thimble. Is this your thimble? The Lord asked. The seamstress replied, Yes. The Lord was pleased with the woman's honesty and gave her all 3 thimbles to keep, and the seamstress went home happy. Some years later, the seamstress was walking with her husband along the riverbank, and her husband fell into the river and disappeared under the water. When she cried out, the Lord again appeared and asked her, Why are you crying? O Lord, my husband has fallen into the river. The Lord went down into the water and came up with George Clooney. Is this your husband? The Lord asked. Yes, cried the seamstress. The Lord was furious. You lied! That is an untruth. The seamstress replied. Oh, forgive me, my lord. It is a misunderstanding. You see, if I had said, No, to George Clooney, you would have come up with Brad Pitt. Then if I said, No, to him, you would have come up with my husband. Had I then said, Yes, you would have given me all 3. Lord, I'm not in the best of health and would not be able to take care of all 3 husbands, so that's why I said, Yes, to George Clooney. And so the Lord let her keep him. The moral of this story is, whenever a woman lies, it's for a good and honorable reason, and in the best interest of others. That's our story, and we're sticking to it. Signed, all us women.